Thomas and the Horse. It was a warm summer's evening on the island of Sodor, and the engines were settling down for the night at Tidmouth Sheds. The sun finally disappeared, and the stars twinkled in the night sky. One by one, the engines fell asleep. After a little while, the engines heard a chuffing noise. "Here comes Thomas," groaned Henry. Thomas steamed quietly in. He'd been taking the mail train that night, and was now tired and worn out. The turntable twisted around, and Thomas backed into his berth. "You know, little Thomas," Gordon said, "if you carry on like this, you'll soon start seeing things."
"Oh," said Thomas cheekily, "like you and those trousers?"
"What trousers?"
"The ones that you thought were a danger signal."
"That was merely once," Gordon said hastily as the other engines burst out laughing. "My point is that you shall continue to hallucinate if you lose sleep like that."
"What's hallucinate?" asked Percy innocently. "Hallucinating, Percy," exclaimed Edward, "is a word used when people see things that aren't really there." "Like when, in the dark, things look scarier than they really are?"
"Exactly, Percy," Edward smiled. "Now let's get some sleep." The next morning, all the other engines woke up and went off to do their daily jobs. But Thomas was still asleep. Gordon waited impatiently at the platform. "Such rudeness," he grumbled. "Full steam and no coaches." Even the fat controller was cross. "I'll soon see to this," he told the grumbling passengers. He found Thomas still asleep in the shed. "Come along, Thomas," he shouted. "You need to start work." Thomas woke with a start.
"Oh, yes, sir,"
he said, hurrying away to collect Gordon's coaches. Later that day, Thomas was steaming along his branch line. He could barely keep his eyes open, when he was suddenly awakened by something leaping over the hedge next to him.
What was that?"
he cried. His driver laughed. "That's the horse race," he said. "Horses and jockeys come from far and wide to race their horses against one another."
"Oh," said Thomas, "a horse race, of course."
Later on at the station by the river, Thomas saw a horse on the platform. Near it stood a jockey.
"Hello,"
Thomas smiled.
"Who are you?"
"I'm Harry," said the jockey, "and this is Jamie. We've come from the mainland."
"Hello, Jamie,"
Thomas whistled. But Jamie suddenly jumped in fright at Thomas's whistle. "Shh, Thomas," Harry hushed. "Horses don't like loud noises."
"Oh, sorry, Jamie,"
Thomas whispered. The guard opened the livestock van, and Harry led Jamie on board. Then Harry went up into Thomas's cab. Thomas then steamed away.
"Is it fun to race horses?"
Thomas asked as they went along. "It's very dangerous," Harry said, "but it's fun all the same. If we win, we get a special ribbon that says first place."
"Wow!" Thomas exclaimed. "I wish I had a ribbon."
"You already had the number one, Thomas," laughed his driver. "Come on." Thomas took them to the top station, where Jamie and Harry got off. "Thank you, Thomas," called Harry as the pair left the station.
"Goodbye," Thomas called, "and good luck."
Later that evening, Thomas was taking a late afternoon train down past the racecourse, when he thought he saw something out of the corner of his eye. He slowed down. "Hey up, Thomas," called his driver. "We'll be late."
"But there's something going on at the racecourse," Thomas said.
"Gordon must be right," Thomas's driver said to himself. "All that loss of sleep must have gone to his head." But soon Thomas could see something beyond the hedges and gasped. Everyone was crowded around Jamie, who was stuck fast in a thick, wet mud.
"Cinders and ashes,"
Thomas said. He stopped. "Well, blow me down," said the driver.
"Peep, peep, peep," Thomas called. "Is everything okay?"
"Oh, Thomas," cried Harry, running over. "Thank goodness." "What happened?" asked the fireman. "We were in the middle of a race," explained Harry, "when Jamie decided he wanted to eat some grass. When he stopped to eat from the ground, he was stood on a thick patch of mud. Before anyone knew it, he began sinking. Now he's stuck fast." "What on earth should we do?" Thomas's driver asked. Suddenly, Thomas had an idea. He whispered it to his driver. "Well," said the driver, "that sounds like a plan. What do you think, Harry?" "It's worth a try," Harry said. So the driver went and collected a long rope from the guard.
Then he attached one end to Thomas's front coupling. Harry attached the other to Jamie's harness. "Are you ready?" Harry called. "Heave!" Thomas began to slowly move backwards. Jamie felt himself being pulled from the mud. "It's working!" Harry called. Thomas began to pull harder on the rope. At last Jamie was freed from the mud. "Oh, thank you," said Harry. "However can we thank you?" "I think I know how," said another jockey. He took a ribbon from his horse and gave it to Thomas. The ribbon read, "First place." "Wow!" whistled Thomas. "Thank you!" "3 cheers for Thomas!" called the jockeys. "Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray!" As Thomas made his way home that night, he heard a whinny of thanks from the racecourse stables. He smiled to himself. "You're welcome, Jamie," he chuffed.